The art world, a place of outrageous fortune.
95, selling at $95 million.
But beneath the surface lurks danger.
I probably turned out about 200 fakes over a 6-7 year period.
You're committing fraud on a grand scale.
International art dealer Philip Mould uncovers Sleepers, pictures with a secret past. Now he's bringing his detective skills to solve more mysteries locked in paint.
In the past we looked at pictures. Now almost you can look through them.
I'm Fiona Bruce. As a journalist, I'm used to hunting for facts. We're teaming up for a new series of investigations. This case will be one of the most challenging we've ever faced, as we try and prove that this little dancer was painted by one of the world's most famous artists. Our investigation takes us from the ballet in Paris,
That's it, isn't it? Yeah, that is it.
to Germany and the biggest forgery scandal of modern times.
When these paintings were thought to be genuine, how much were they worth?
Millions.
With cutting-edge science and new research, can we persuade the world's experts to accept it as a genuine work?
If it is a fake, it's a very good one. This is, I think, on a knife edge.
Mayfair, London, where the very well-heeled come in search of jewellery, fashion and fine art. Fancy a bit of window shopping?
I wouldn't say no.
Many a multi-million-pound deal has taken place behind these doors. So what do you think of that dreamy little Monet? That could look rather tasty above your fireplace. I guess how much that is?
I don't know, I hate guessing. What would you say?
North of £1 million.
Wow. It's amazing, isn't it? Just think, it's a piece of canvas and just the power of the artist's imagination. And you get a value like that?
Yeah, but it's also because the art world's authorities agree on its authenticity. I mean, this can be a street of broken dreams. I mean, for every picture that's fully accepted, there are hundreds with question marks above their head.
Which is where we come in.
Patrick Rice and his son Jonathan have made an appointment to show us a painting that has had a question mark over it for decades.
Hi there. You must be Patrick.
Hello.
Fiona, nice to meet you.
But they believe it's an important work by one of the world's most sought-after artists.
Here's the painting.
So this is the painting.
This is the painting.
Can I unwrap it?
Yes.
Now. Oh my word. Degas, it says.
Yes.
Gosh. Well, it certainly looks like a Degas. One of his dancers. Well, that's a typical Degas subject, isn't it?
I think it is, yes.
Well, dancers by Degas. I mean, it's one of those great cliches out there, isn't it?
Yes, well, it's interesting because obviously in some ways the main subject are the double basses sort of coming up in the front, which gives it a rather dark quality, but I think it's a very interesting painting.
And how did you come by, certainly what looks like, a painting by one of the great Impressionist masters?
Well, my father bought it at the end of the war from Nerdler's.
Which was an art dealer's?
Yes.
And presumably it wasn't cheap?
No, I think it probably was about the right sort of market price for the time. £800.
£800 just after the war?
Yes.
That's the equivalent of £20,000 in today's money.
Yes.
Patrick's father, Edward Dennis Rice, was a gentleman farmer from Kent who married an American heiress in the 1930s. The family fortune gradually disappeared at the end of the 20th century, and the painting is one of the few surviving mementos of a more prosperous age.
But Danseuse Bleue, the Blue Dancer, doesn't appear in the official record of Degas' works, the Catalogue Raisonné, and one expert who examined it in 2009 expressed doubts about its authenticity.
What didn't he like about the painting?
There were a few things. The face of the dancer, which I think he called trivial. The position of it, I think he said it was not a formal pose. And the draftsmanship of the heads of the double bass. And then the other one, I guess the bigger one, would be the signature.
Did he not think it looked like a Degas signature?
He had problems with it.
Without the catalogue raisonné, without the expert backup, it's extremely difficult to sell.
If this is Degas, what's it worth?
Well, it's easier to ask what it'd be worth if it weren't by Degas. Probably a few £100.
Yeah.
As a work by Degas, possibly £500,000.
Yeah.
So if you succeed in proving that this is by Degas, what do you have in mind for it?
Well, it was handed on to me by my sister in order to help my side of the family. And it is very valuable, and the best way that it can be useful to the whole family is to sell it. I think whatever happens, it's going to be extremely interesting to clear up the whole mystery of it.
The stakes couldn't be higher for Patrick's painting. Degas is one of the most popular artists in the world. He's been the subject of blockbuster exhibitions, and his works take pride of place in galleries such as the Courtauld Institute in London. I'm going to show you just how high the bar is set. I mean, if we're going to prove that Patrick's picture is by Degas, it's going to need to have all the hallmarks of the master who did this.
Just beautiful, isn't it?
Isn't that feeling of artificial life extraordinary? The shadow of the rose on her dress is cast in that very dramatic way.
It's almost like a snapshot, isn't it? Frozen in mid-pose. I mean, what I love about it, like so many women, I did a tiny bit of ballet, sort of clumping around the village hall when I was small. And
Clumping?
Clumping, and absolutely. And is every little girl's kind of dream, this impossibly frothy tulle, lighter than air skirts.
He used the ballet like some artists use landscapes, others used still lives to conquer all the great quests in art. Feeling of light, feeling of colour, feeling of atmosphere.
Feeling of movement.
And movement, of course, yes.
And do you think our painting can live up to that?
I mean, it is a tall order, isn't it? However, this is a much bigger picture. Probably, you could say, rather more ambitious. And I think there's enough trace elements for us to take Patrick's picture seriously. I really don't think this rules it out.
Trouble is, Patrick's picture is not in the Catalogue Raisonné, and this painting, of course, is.
Yep, and there it is. 425, stamped, numbered, provenance there written up. I mean, we've got to find a way of getting Patrick's picture into this.
Back in Philip's gallery, it's time to assess the challenge ahead with the help of our head of research, Dr. Bendor Grosvenor, a man with an acute eye for art and a keen instinct for evidence.
Now, I've been having a look at a high-resolution scan of Patrick's picture here, and I think once you get your head around the composition, it's actually quite an intriguing prospect. So we've obviously got a little ballet dancer on a stage, and then I think to the right of her, Seems to me like a sort of grotto background scenery. And then on the left, what looks like a seascape.
And those dark looming shapes in the foreground are in fact double bass heads. So this is an orchestra pit, and what we're seeing is a performance.
Those double bass heads are rather awkward, aren't they? Or interesting, depending on your point of view. I mean, it would be good to know if Degas painted that kind of thing in that way.
But he likes to challenge Degas. He does awkward. Okay, so what do we know about the picture's history, its provenance?
Well, very helpfully for me, Patrick still has the original invoice from when his family bought the picture in 1945. And at the bottom of the invoice, it says provenance. This picture was bought direct from the artist by Goupil & Co. They were a famous firm of art dealers in the 19th century, in 1882, and sold by them to Monsieur Emil Halbert, founder and editor of the well-known art magazine Kunst und Künstler of Berlin, and now comes from his daughter.
So, we've got a previous owner who was editor of an art magazine, who bought it from a dealer, who bought it from Degas himself. It's pretty compelling, isn't it?
It is, if we can make it all add up. But unfortunately, I think I've spotted a mistake already in this legend. It says here that the picture was bought in 1882 from Degas, but we know that Degas was only dealing with another dealer, Paul Durand-Ruel, until 1887, so the dates don't quite work.
So, how worried should we be about that? Does that mean it's a fake?
I don't think we should get too hung up on this. This was, remember, 50 years after Degas sold it. It was passed from father to daughter. You know, things get lost in that process. The crucial thing, though, is to find it physically written in the Goupil stockbook.
Philip, you're always saying that you can tell as much about a painting from the back as the front. So is there anything on the back of this painting that can help us?
Well, I'm glad you remember that, but I'm afraid in this instance it's a red herring. There is something on the back, but it's a Christie's stencil.
And Patrick's family took it to Christie's in the 1970s when he was trying to get it authenticated then.
But it's not necessarily a bad thing that we haven't found exhibition labels and signs of it being out in the public. This was a private painting that didn't get that light of day.
Well, okay, so putting the back of the painting and the provenance to one side then, is there anything else we can do to establish whether or not this is a genuine Degas?
I mean, this has had some serious accusations thrown against it. We need now to try and rebuff those.
If there's any new evidence we can unearth at all, then it might just mean that the people who are compiling the catalogue raisonné will at last put it in.
Our search begins in Degas' hometown, Paris. First stop, the Musée d'Orsay. Once a railway station, it now houses one of the world's finest collections of Impressionist art, including some of Degas' most important paintings and sculptures.
So this is the man, Edgar Degas.
He did age 21 when he painted the self-portrait. But he was looking back in those days. He's looking back to the old masters who really influenced him.
So how did this rather stiff, self-conscious-looking young man turn into the artist who created paintings full of vibrancy and movement, and who may have created Patrick's painting?
The son of a wealthy banker, Edgar Degas was born in Paris in 1834 and briefly trained as a lawyer before becoming an artist. The seriousness of his early work gave way to something altogether more daring and expressive when he discovered the bohemian world of the stage, as curator Xavier Ray explains. Hello, Xavier.
Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you and welcome at the Musée d'Orsay.
Thank you.
This particular painting, what can you tell us about it?
This painting is one of the first ballets seen by Degas, and is a view that was very unusual for that time, when you see the orchestra in the foreground and just the legs of the dancer of the background.
But you notice something similar to Patrick's picture.
Of course, the composition with the double bass sticking up into the stage there.
But in the same way that the double basses somehow link you with the stage in Patrick's picture, so too this seems to sort of act almost like a ladder up into all the effervescent colour.
Well, that's fascinating, and it makes Patrick's picture seem slightly less outlandish. There's a continuity of thought there, isn't there, between this painting and Patrick's?
You can see, exactly. You could see how the idea evolved. In 1874, a radical group of painters called the Impressionists staged their first exhibition in Paris. Alongside works by Monet and Renoir was a painting by Degas that showcased everything he was passionate about in art.
So this painting shows what the ballet scenes will be all Degas' career. So a study of movement, of different poses of ballet dancers, and also the study of the artificial light.
Could Patrick's little blue dancer claim a rightful place on stage with the rest of Degas' ballerinas? We need to take our research a step further and find out more about how Degas painted his favourite subject.
It was a real thrill to see the realism of the poses of the dancers, scratching, yawning, tying of a ballet shoe, fastening a ribbon. And I don't know enough about ballet to assess whether the dancer's pose in Patrick's painting is realistic in the way that Degas would have painted.
No, that's something you need to check out further. I mean, we've seen a lot of evidence today, but provenance is an issue, and it's something I'm going to need to tighten up.
At the time we think Patrick's picture was painted, in the 1880s, Degas was frequently attending ballet performances here at the Palais Garnier, a spectacular opera house in the heart of Paris. I'm following in Degas' footsteps to get an insight into the world that inspired him, and to search for evidence that might help prove he painted our blue dancer. I want to find out if the scene depicted in Patrick's picture bears any relation to a performance Degas would have seen here. Archivist Mathias Auclair has searched out visual records of two ballets that featured a grotto and seascape as part of the set, Sylvia and The Tempest.
We have photographs of set of the Sylvia, and you can see it's Greek style with a temple.
It's a bit of a stretch, isn't it? But, I mean, there is some water here and a sense of an arch. But that's probably about it. Well, the other one that's been suggested is possibly The Tempest. Have you got anything about The Tempest from this time?
We have
from 1889.
Design of the costumes.
Gosh, this wasp waist here. Is that some designer's idealised version of a woman? We're getting there.
With the electric blue, because it's
and the shape and the style of the skirt of the tutu, the headdress, maybe, possibly, yes.
After a glimpse of the costumes in the archives, and those hanging now in the costume department, it's easy to understand why Degas once said his chief interest lay in rendering movement and painting pretty clothes. But I'm still hoping the ballet might provide us with more compelling evidence to support Patrick's picture. And on the other side of town, Philip is on the hunt for more clues about the painting's history.
A According to Patrick's invoice, we should be able to trace his painting right back to the moment it left Degas' studio. It's a tantalising prospect, but all I've got to go on are two names, Goupil and Heilbert. To find out more, I've come to visit the archives of the man who managed Degas' business affairs, renowned art dealer Paul Durand-Ruel. He was well acquainted with all the players in the Paris art scene, and his descendants, Flavie and Paul-Louis, have been searching his records for information about the names on our list. The first stage in our provenance is that we have a record of the picture being sold by Degas to Goupil. Now, who is Goupil?
Goupil was mainly a seller and producer of lithographs and prints. But then Theo van Gogh, brother of the painter Vincent, worked with Goupil and was a very astute dealer, and he brought quite a lot of business to Goupil.
This is good news for us. Degas was notoriously picky about who he did business with, but he trusted Theo van Gogh and sold him some paintings of dancers between 1887 and 1891. So there's a real chance that Van Gogh's brother would have bought our picture.
Yes.
Well, there's a thought. Now, the last owner of this picture was a chap called Emil Heilbert, who had a German connection. Can you tell us anything about him?
Well, Durand-Ruel had quite a long, active relationship with Heilbert. He was a sort of unofficial agent in Germany. He knew collectors there and acted as a middleman.
This is intriguing stuff. Emil Heilbert, the previous owner of Patrick's picture, wasn't just the editor of a German magazine. He was also an art dealer, and he seems to have been a keen buyer of Degas' works.
We have here Degas, bought by Heilbert on 25th of October 1895.
Oh, now that's interesting, because it shows that Heilbert has a particular interest in this artist Degas. With Fiona and I following up leads in Paris, Bendel and Jonathan turn their attention to the criticisms levelled at the painting. The auction house Christie's had expressed interest in the picture in 2009, until a Degas expert they consulted found fault with the dancer's face and the artist's signature. But are there grounds for a second opinion?
So we've got here three absolutely authentic Degas signatures on different pictures, but I don't know about you, but to me they look as if they could all perhaps be by a different artist.
Yeah.
That one's very sort of rapidly painted, isn't
Yeah.
it? What I like about this one at the bottom is your expert said that the G was a little bit problematic, but I find that quite similar to yours.
Yeah, absolutely. And then here we've also got the sort of hook of the D.
Yeah. And I think with your picture it's quite interesting how because it's quite small, it's different from doing a signature on a big finished painting. And it's a little bit like when you're trying to sign your own signature on the back of a credit card in that tiny little strip. You always get it wrong, don't you? It doesn't quite look like your normal signature, but maybe that's what was going on with Degas here. If I was forging that picture, I think I would go out there to make the signature look
really good,
more like a Degas signature. So the fact that it looks peculiar could actually be an argument in his favour. And Jonathan, what else did the connoisseur not like about your picture?
He had concerns over the face of the dancer.
Face of the dancer, right.
He described its sort of trivial features.
Right. I mean, I suppose you can see what he means, in a way, because it is a little bit awkward, isn't it? With that funny little sort of grimace and that funny little pair of eyes.
Well, it's a very subjective thing. Even though it is sort of very simply drawn, I think it's also very sort of competently drawn.
Well, I've been having a little look amongst other Degas. What I think is really interesting is that the faces of these little figures are actually, you could call them trivialised too, couldn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, this one here looks like it was drawn by a 5-year-old.
Yeah, it does.
And we've got some more examples here. Again, I mean, you could say that these are rather trivial faces, couldn't you? So I think what we're dealing with here is it's quite difficult to actually make a firm opinion on a little face like that, because in real life It's tiny, isn't it? I mean, look, it's not even half a centimetre big.
Yeah.
The Degas expert who examined Patrick's painting was also critical of the dancer's pose. As an artist, Degas was meticulous about the way he portrayed his dancers, depicting realistic ballet positions. But can we prove that the dancer in Patrick's painting is balanced in an authentic ballet pose? Back in the Palais Garnier in Paris, I enlisted the help of the head of ballet, a dancer, and a photographer to try and recreate the scene.
We have here a picture which may or may not be by Degas, but the important thing I want you to look at is the pose of this dancer. Vivienne, is this pose wrong?
Oh non, c'est vrai. Au deuxième acte de Gisèle, à un certain moment, on a cette chorégraphie qui va de droite à gauche avec les
Alors ça existe,
bien sûr.
Well, what we're wondering, Eleanor, is if you could take that position, we could catch a snapshot of it, and then we could compare it with this. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Great. Sebastian, do you want to, let's see if we can capture that.
Degas was fascinated by the new technique of photography. He got his first camera in 1895 and used it to take photos of himself and his artist friends. But in an age when taking a photo was a slow and laborious process, Degas still had the edge in his art, capturing the turn of a heel or the twirl of a skirt in a way that the early photographers could only dream of.
Now, don't be fussy, but I think she's looking down.
Ah, yeah.
I think she's looking down like that.
Okay.
Mais ça c'est un problème. Is that a problem? Would you not naturally do that, or?
No.
Or it's okay?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Okay.
Cette position, elle n'est pas fixée.
So the position's not fixed, it's swaying.
On passe par là.
So he's looking down, facing forward.
Piétiner à droite. C'est exactement ça.
That's exactly it, I think. That's it, isn't it? I mean, that is it.
Good.
Thanks very much.
Moi, j'aime bien la troisième.
The third one. That's it. I mean, that's real progress for us.
Yeah.
There you are. Degas could have painted that, look. Oh, look at that.
Good.
I have to say, that is better than I expected. Thank you, Leonor. That's just great.
After a fruitful trip to Paris, we reconvene back at Philip's gallery. Bendor has been looking for hard evidence to back up the story on Patrick's invoice, and he thinks he's found it.
Now, I've been having a look in the Goupil & Co. stock books, and there is a reference to what could be our picture. It's here in 1889, stock number 19873, and the title of the picture is Danseuse Bleue et Contrebasse, which means blue dancer and double basses, and it was bought from Degas for 600 francs. Then, in the final Goupil stockbook instalment, we find that the picture was sold to Heilbut. On paper, the provenance is all very convincing, but we need to prove that the painting Patrick has now was the same picture that's in all these stockbooks from earlier on. But I've been going through the catalogue raisonné here, with which I've become very familiar, and unfortunately, here's a picture I think you might recognise.
Gosh, that's almost identical, isn't it, to Patrick's painting?
It hangs in an art gallery in Hamburg, and it was given to them in the 1920s by a collector who bought it in the 1890s from our friend Emil Halbert.
Halbert? I mean, that's extraordinary, because we're dealing with the same provenance, well, sounds like it, the same composition. So we have to ask ourselves, is that going to be a problem? This is our first serious obstacle. If the entry in the Google stock book actually relates to the Hamburg painting, is Patrick's picture just masquerading as a genuine Degas work?
Hey, look, can we see both pictures side by side?
Yes.
Because surely, I mean, look at them. We have to at least consider the possibility that Patrick's is a copy. You know, a fake.
Well, I share your concerns.
Though presume if it was fake, that would be before 1945, because after that date it was in the possession of Patrick's family. We know that.
Yes, although unfortunately, the mention of that year 1945 slightly rings alarm bells in our world, wouldn't you say?
I have to say, that chilling date, it could be the kiss of death to an otherwise decent provenance.
I mean, if you can imagine, you've got the end of the Nazi era, the end of the Second World War, chaos. There are literally thousands of masterpieces that go missing, and it becomes a wonderful smokescreen for forgers to try and pass off their fakes as those missing originals. And in fact, in Germany, the police have just been prosecuting a master forger who was doing exactly that.
Well, maybe then we could talk to the German police about our painting and see how they spotted their fakes.
I've come to Berlin to follow up Bendor's lead about a major investigation into fake artworks with stolen provenances. I've secured a meeting in the grandly named State Criminal Police Office Department of Art with Markus Schoenfelder, one of the detectives who helped convict Europe's most prolific modern forger, Wolfgang Beltracchi. He was jailed for 6 years in 2011 for creating 14 fictitious works by renowned modern artists, but police believe he faked many more.
We've got French, we've got Dutch, we've got German, we've got modernism, we've got cubism, surrealism. I mean, he could turn his hand to anything, couldn't he?
Yeah, it seemed so.
And when these paintings were thought to be genuine, how much were they worth?
Millions.
Millions?
Millions.
Wow.
The most valuable, I think, is the Degas for more than $4 million.
Wow. And, I mean, he managed to trick art experts, gallery owners, museums.
Yes. For a long time. I think for more than 20 years.
The genius of Beltracchi's crime lay in the way he researched paintings that had gone missing during the Second World War. He then created his own versions of them, claiming the paintings had suddenly resurfaced from long-lost Jewish art collections. He made fake labels for the collections, soaking them in coffee so they would look old. Beltracchi's partner, Helene, even posed beside the fakes in period dress in a photograph that was doctored to look like it had been taken in the 1920s. A trick that was only exposed when the police discovered they bought the bronze sculpture in 2003. And how many did he paint?
In the last interview, I heard that he painted works from 50 artists, so you could count.
Dozens and dozens and dozens. Hundreds?
Perhaps. I don't know really. That's his knowledge and his...
And he's keeping it?
And he's keeping it.
So, presumably, there are Beltracchi fakes, what, on museum walls still? In collections? In galleries?
Perhaps.
The art world fell for Beltracchi's fakes because they had the provenance of the original missing work. Could someone have played the same trick on Patrick's father in 1945?
Looking at the possible Degas, the sale letter talks of it was sold in 1945, and it's written a history of who it belonged to. But I mean, that could be made up. I mean, we just don't know.
Yes.
Beltracchi was finally caught when forensic tests on a suspicious picture revealed the presence of a pigment that didn't exist at the time it was supposed to have been painted.
My advice would be to go to a scientist to analyze the pigments, the layer and everything.
So expert connoisseurship on its own is not enough?
No, not really.
The Beltracchi case shows how important science can be in exposing fakes. To be sure that there are no suspicious pigments in Patrick's picture, I've come to University College London to meet Kathleen Froyen, an art historian with a high-tech gadget that wouldn't look out of place in a James Bond film. An art gun that can identify the chemicals in oil paint and trace them right back to the artist's palette.
We're looking for chemical elements, and from the combination of elements that we find, we can deduct which pigments were used.
I see. So every pigment has its own, as it were, DNA that this gun can pick up.
Yes. On average, we'll find about 10 to 15 elements. Oh, this is good because we actually found mercury here, which means that he used vermilion to paint this very bright red.
I see. So mercury is the sort of the bedfellow of vermilion, as it were.
Yes, it is.
And now, what does vermilion tell us?
Well, the Impressionists and Post-Impressionist painters were particularly attracted to this pigment because it was such a brilliant scarlet, so they loved using it. It really caught their eye.
There is one pigment that we just don't want to find in Patrick's picture. Titanium white. Only in use a year after Degas' death in 1917, its presence would prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that the painting is a fake.
So you're going for the bonnet of the dancer?
I am, yes. It's the most obvious area where there's white present. Well, this is very encouraging. As you can see here, the main elements found are lead, which is good because it indicates that probably lead white was used and not titanium
As opposed
white.
to the dreaded titanium,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Phew.
Also, the combination of copper and arsenic that we found here indicates that most likely he used emerald green, which is fascinating because it was used a lot in Degas' time, but throughout the 20th century kind of phased out because it was poisonous, and the pigment was eventually banned in the 1960s.
Oh, right. Well, that helps us a bit.
The pigments in Patrick's painting seem to be consistent with the Impressionist period. There's even evidence of certain colours specific to Degas' palette. But to be more confident that it isn't just a copy of the one in Germany, I brought Patrick and his painting to Hamburg's renowned art gallery. For the first time in his life, Patrick will be able to compare the two paintings side by side. Can his Blue Dancer hold its own next to a genuine work with remarkable similarities?
Oh, there it is.
Yes. That's an extraordinary moment for me. Yes, fascinating, because the double bases are placed almost exactly in the same position. And it's extraordinary.
Yes. The most obvious and sort of distinctive difference is in the tone. This is possibly a more brightly lit scene.
Yes.
And that's a bit more twilight, wouldn't you say?
This has got yes, it is a twilight, heavier look to it. This is much more modern looking, really.
Yes, isn't it? It's slightly brasher.
Yes. It's a chunkiness about it, which is very pleasing, actually. And I think it's lovely.
You're about to say you prefer this, don't you?
No.
Comparing the pictures on the wall is one thing, but the gallery have agreed to help us go one step further and take their painting out of its frame for closer inspection.
Meanwhile, I've arrived in Hamburg with a mission of my own. This was the hometown of the mysterious Emil Heilbut, and I want to know more about the man who figures prominently in the provenance of both paintings. I've come to the gallery's archive to meet historian Dr. Alex Bastek. He's written about Heilbut's life and career, and shows me the only known photo of him.
He attended the Art College in Munich, and we know that there must be paintings by Heilbut as well, but we have no images of these at all. We know him best as an art critic. He wrote for several art magazines like Kunst und Künstler. In fact, Heilbut was the first art critic to write a favorable article about Claude Monet in Germany.
So he was a supporter of Impressionism, wasn't he, in Germany?
Right.
Now, you say he was an art critic, but obviously, I mean, he owned Patrick's painting, so he was, what was he, a collector?
He collected art to resell it. He was occasionally working as an art dealer as well, but most of all to teach the public what is modern art. He held lessons at the Weimar Kunst Academy with his 3 Monet paintings he possessed.
So he saw it as his mission, did he, to convert people to Impressionism and to painters like Degas?
Yeah. We have a quite interesting letter here, written in 1893, where he describes the painting of Degas. Greater beauty and achieved with these simple means I cannot imagine. That's what he writes about Degas.
Heilbut's passion for Degas made him a convincing salesman. He sold the painting that now hangs in the Hamburg gallery to a wealthy German collector, who proudly displayed it alongside his old masters. You can just make out the double bases there, can't you, in the foreground? Without a photograph of Patrick's painting hanging on Emil Heilbut's wall, we can only assume that he kept it all his life and passed it on to his daughter, as the original invoice suggests. The fact that Heilbut never sold the painting that Patrick certainly believes is by Degas, do you think that's unusual?
There might be several paintings he kept just to possess them and to be an art collector, as you expect someone to be.
So not necessarily because he couldn't sell them, because he didn't want to sell them?
No, just because he loved this one and wanted to possess it.
Back in the gallery's library, the moment of truth has arrived for Patrick and me as curator Jens Hovold unveils their Degas dancer, and we get the opportunity to make a direct comparison with Patrick's painting. Hello there, how nice to meet you. And thank you so much for taking this painting out of its frame for us. I have to say, this is a terrific moment, isn't it? I mean, there is no better way than comparing art than in the flesh like this.
Absolutely.
I would say something strikes me now we're seeing the two patients, as it were, naked without their clothes on the
Yes.
Your picture is thicker. The paint has a little bit more depth.
Yes, I noticed that.
The Hamburg painting seems altogether more spontaneous. Even the ground layer of white paint that the surface has been primed with is doing some work.
This makes this painting so interesting because this has to do with light, and he uses these areas of the priming as a light source.
And I get the impression that there's more of a sense of of evolution in your painting, as if he's trying to arrive at the composition.
Yeah, I think so. It seems to have evolved more of a struggle, really. The other one maybe came much more easily.
Yes, I mean, in your picture, it looks as though the solution has been arrived at.
Yes.
And he's playing. You know, he's playing with ideas and colours.
It's got a lighter touch altogether.
Degas was an experimental artist who liked to try out different techniques and materials. As an alternative to canvas, he occasionally painted on wooden panels. Patrick's picture is on mahogany, but what about the Hamburg painting?
Do you happen to know what wood yours is made from?
Yes, this is obviously it's mahogany.
It's mahogany.
Yeah.
I mean, there are quite a few possible choices of wood, so the fact that they're both mahogany I find very encouraging. And although yours is covered with brown paper, you can see that the edge has been similarly beveled, which allows you to fit it into a frame better apart from anything else. But one immediate thing that I've just noticed is this stamp on the back. Now, I wasn't expecting to see that. Do you know anything about that?
Not exactly. We can read one single word. This is Paris.
I should think it's artist supplier.
I think that's quite possible.
Yeah.
But it gives us a lead, another lead.
Yes, it does indeed.
What we've seen today is actually really encouraging. We've seen two paintings that share very much the same characteristics. I mean, the same approach to the subject matter, the same supports. You know, they're both on mahogany. I have to say I'm slightly more optimistic than I was, but I still think we've got quite a way to go.
How did you go?
We both had cause for optimism after our visit to Hamburg, but we still needed to find out why the painting suddenly appeared in a London art dealer's at the end of the Second World War.
If Patrick's picture is genuine, we have to believe it was in the hands of Emil Halbert's family until this point, and the only people who can confirm that are Halbert's descendants.
But we've made a thrilling breakthrough. We've tracked down Halbert's great-granddaughter, Hilary. She lives in America, but she's flown over here to give us some answers. Hilary, thank you so much for coming.
Oh, it's a delight, thank you.
Can you trace back the family connection for me?
Emil Halbert married an English woman, and they had a daughter, Katie, my grandma. And she had a son, Claude, my father, and there he is when he was at Oxford.
And then it ends with you, for the purposes of our story.
Yes, he had me.
So is there any specific family memory about the sale of the picture we're looking into?
Oh, yes. My father specifically recalls my grandmother having to sell this Degas ballet dancer painting in 1945 because she needed money.
Fascinating.
Hilary's grandmother, Katie, married an Austrian Jew in 1933. They lived in Vienna until the rise of the Nazis forced them to flee with all their belongings.
She had the foresight to get to London because that was where her family was, and where my grandma went, the collection went after Emil died and left it to her.
So your grandmother inherited a whole collection from Emil Halbert. So what sort of names are we talking about?
There were 2 Manet lithographs, large ones. There was a Munch painting. We've still got this little Degas dancer. That's what we've always known it as. This is a reproduction of it.
It's a very sweet-looking little sketch.
It's charming.
So in terms of the provenance of this painting, then, we're doing pretty well, aren't we? I mean, we're tracing it from Degas, de Goupil, Degas' dealer, to your great-grandfather, down through the family, to your grandmother, to your father, who remembers this painting being sold. We then pick up the trail at Nerdler's, the dealers, where we have the document saying it was sold, to the Rice family. I mean, that is an unbroken line of provenance.
Yes.
It doesn't get much better than that, does it?
I mean, it's the sort of evidence that would convince a jury, but will it convince a catalogue raisonné writer? Hilary's story is compelling, but Bendall might just have found the hard evidence we need to back it up. A separate entry in the Google stock books that proves Emil Halbert did buy 2 virtually identical Degas dancers.
I found a little nugget of provenance, which I think is going to help our cause. It turns out that the picture in Hamburg, which we know belonged to Halbert, has its own provenance going all the way back to Degas in 1889. So there's no question of the provenance of Patrick's picture being muddled up with the picture in Hamburg.
In fact, the Hamburg picture, ironically, could actually help us prove Patrick's, because it could easily be some sort of variant, some sort of first idea for the Hamburg painting. I mean, we sell versions of things all the time. I mean, Henry VIII's and Nelson's coming out of our ears. Patrick's painting could be a study for the other one. I mean, artists did this. We know that Degas did this and added to it. They're both on almost identical panels.
Well, I've done some research into the label which you found on the back of the panel of the picture in Hamburg. And it comes from a firm of artist suppliers called Ray and Perrault, and their headquarters were just round the corner from Degas' studio. Now, annoyingly, we haven't got that stamp on the back of Patrick's picture, but I have had Patrick's picture x-rayed, and it shows at the very least that it was prepared with a base layer or a ground layer of lead white paint, which is just how people like Ray and Perrault used to prepare the panels they sold to artists in Paris.
Okay, so both paintings are on the same professionally prepared 19th century artist supplier panel, which is circumstantial at best, really. But then if we add in the pigment analysis that you did and the provenance, does this mean we are now ready to submit Patrick's painting to the people who write the catalogue raisonné then?
Nearly, but not quite. There's a woman I would love to show this to, Anthea Callan. She's seen as an oracle on this whole subject of Impressionism. If we can get her blessing for this picture, I feel so much more comfortable taking it out to France. Getting an audience with Dr. Anthea Callan hasn't been easy. She divides her time between Britain, France and Australia, and her expertise as an authenticator is always in demand. She's reviewed the results of our forensic tests on the pigments in the panel, but will she buy into our theories about the signature and the face of the dancer? She agreed to meet us at the Courtauld Institute in London to offer her opinion.
Anthea, hello.
Hi.
What do you make of our little painting?
It's an interesting problem. There are all sorts of things that are good about it, but I think there are definitely some serious queries as well.
So you've seen the tests now we've had done, the chemical analysis of the pigments, and they all seem to suggest that their late 19th century was certainly used at that date. Now, how do you respond to that?
I think that the pigments are very characteristic, both of the period and of Degas. What you find a good deal of in the results is the earth colours, like red iron oxide or yellow ochre, for example, which aren't characteristic of most of the Impressionist painters' palettes, but nevertheless were regularly used by Degas, so that's all good.
What about the signature? How does that look to you? Because that has been raised as an issue in the past.
Yes. The signature goes very woolly after the D. The D I can accept, but between the D and the S, it goes rather sort of blurred and woolly.
I mean, the signature did keep changing, though. I mean,
absolutely, yeah.
So
it's possible, but it's...
Give me something which you think is really against, because your expression suggests that you stand both sides of the line.
Well, I would be concerned both about the draftsmanship, the construction of it. For example, in the heads of the double basses, for me the drawing is not quite right. He hasn't fully articulated the forms of those bass heads, which he does in other work. So he clearly knows the instruments really well. One of the least convincing elements is actually the face. It's almost too cute, too pretty.
I have to say, I love what I'm hearing in a way, because this is connoisseurship in action.
Sure, but with the greatest space you have, obviously connoisseurship is an opinion.
Of course.
Yeah, and there will be several opinions.
Of course, but some people are more informed than others.
With Anthea sharing some of the same concerns as the Degas expert who examined Patrick's painting in 2009, the idea that someone else had a hand in the work still can't be ruled out. Have you ever seen other Degas in inverted commas that look like this?
No, I haven't actually. I haven't. So, I mean, if it is a fake, it's a very good one. Whoever has done this knows what they're doing.
So either Degas or a master of crime.
Exactly. This is, I think, on a knife edge.
With one of the world's leading impressionist experts finding it too close to call, are Patrick and Jonathan still happy for us to submit the painting to the Degas Catalogue Raisonné in Paris for final judgment? Given that we have this slightly double-edged response from Anthea, are you prepared now for us to go forward?
Oh, definitely, yes. And I think on balance, it's good news, and we have to just accept what happens at the next stage.
The case we've built up makes it a far easier judgment to say that it is by Degas than it's not.
The Blue Dancer is making the most important journey of her life.
All we can do is wait. The fate of the painting now lies in the hands of Galerie Bram and Laurenceau, the Parisian firm who control the Catalogue Raisonné. They have the sole right to rule on the authenticity of Degas' work. And in the art world, new and previously unknown Impressionist paintings are a rare discovery.
But after more than a month of intense scrutiny, the Blue Dancer is back in England, and a letter has arrived from Paris.
Depending on what's in this letter, Patrick's painting is either worth a few £100 or a few £100,000. Are you ready? Oh my god, I'm trembling slightly. Bram and Laurenceau. We have the pleasure to confirm to you that the painting described below, which you have submitted for our appreciation, is an authentic
That's fantastic! We've done it! We've done it!
The shortest,
We've done it!
most fantastic letter I've ever read.
Gosh! I just can't believe that. I was convinced
So was I.
when I woke up this morning
You little thing.
that this was not going to be...
And have you noticed? It's already begun to change. It's shining.
Patrick and Jonathan are going to be here any minute. And I can't wait to tell them.
After more than 60 years of uncertainty, Patrick and Jonathan are about to get the proof they've dreamed of.
Hi there, nice to see you both. The results from here. How are you feeling?
Well, I think we both feel absolutely on the edge because we know how tricky the whole business is. We think it's unlikely that it got through.
Well, brace yourselves. We have the pleasure to inform you that the painting described below that you have submitted for our appreciation is an authentic work by Edgar Degas. Isn't that great?
Yeah, that is.
Are you shocked?
Exactly. Congratulations to you, actually, or everyone here.
Brilliant.
Completely shocked.
No, I am. I think it's a real kind of lesson in not giving up, actually. I really didn't think it was possible.
With this letter, the line at the bottom here says, this painting will be reproduced in the second supplement of the catalogue résumé of the work of Degas.
Yeah.
Now, that is the seal of approval that you need. If you're going to sell this painting, that's what you need. You've got it. I mean, what would that be worth now?
Well, I can see now for a pocket-sized Degas, there would be a lot of collectors out there who would love this. You know, a ballet image by the great name. I could see it being worth £500,000, if not more, £500,000, if not more.
Yes. Obviously, with my children, the best thing would be that it was sold, and it would help with their mortgages and everything else.
Do you feel a dad should do that?
That was original.
I think this calls for some champagne. I don't know about you.
Most definitely.
Cheers.
Yes, to the christening of the new Degas.
I'm so thrilled for them. And to think, that one letter has made all the difference.
So often in this world that I occupy, I've seen people's dreams crushed. Equally, on occasions, I've seen lives transformed.
And I'm already looking forward to the next painting that turns up.
Detective work next on BBC One. It all began on a train, and now they're drawn deeper into a shady world of spies. Agatha Christie's Partners in Crime.